The Jigsaw is notorious for nasty tear out, crooked cuts, and edges that are nowhere near square. But the truth is, the Jigsaw isn't the problem. Most woodworkers avoid the Jigsaw because they had the same frustrations I did. Cuts that wander, chipped edges, and results that just don't look professional. For years, I thought that's what the Jigsaw was, sloppy and unpredictable. I even convinced myself that the only way to get clean cuts was to buy a $600 Jigsaw, but you do not need to spend that kind of money to get quality cuts. With the right setup, the right technique, and the right blade, even the cheapest Jigsaw can cut beautifully. And at the end, I'll share a few bonus tips that can take your cuts even further if you're really chasing perfection. The first mistake is using one blade for everything. Most Jigsaws come with a cheap general purpose blade and people just leave it in. Then they wonder why it shreds plywood or struggles with thicker cuts. Just like your table saw, different blades are made for different jobs. You wouldn't expect a 24-tooth rip blade to give you a clean cut on delicate plywood, and the Jigsaw is no different. There are blades for wood, laminate, PVC, metal, even scrolling blades for really tight curves. If you're cutting melamine with a general blade, it's going to chip like crazy. Swap in a laminate blade, and suddenly it's smooth and clean. Most Jigsaw blades cut on the upstroke, which pulls fibers upwards and leaves the top face looking chewed up. You've probably seen the same thing on your table saw or miter saw. Tear out happens on the exit side where the fibers aren't supported. That's why you'd use a zero clearance insert on your miter saw, and that's exactly why I make them. They support the wood right where your blade exits and gives you that clean, splinter-free edge. On the Jigsaw though, you don't have that insert, so your best option is flipping the board so the good face is down or using a downcut blade. Downcut blades leave a beautiful surface finish, but feel harder to control since the teeth push the saw downward. If you don't want to buy these specialty blades, just cut on the bottom side instead. Either way, blade direction makes a huge difference in cut quality. A dull Jigsaw blade is just like a dull table saw blade. It burns, it wanders, and every cut feels like a battle. I once kept pushing a board through a dull blade so long it started smoking. I thought I was about to set my shop on fire. Jigsaw blades are even worse because they're so small and they dull way faster. If your blades look burned, caked with pitch, or the teeth are rounded, stop and either clean them or replace them. And if you haven't tried an ultrasonic cleaner yet, they're a game changer. They clean blades and router bits automatically, no scrubbing. I'll link one in the description if you want to check it out. Sharp, clean blades make clean cuts. Don't fight a dull one. So once you've got the right blade in the saw, you've solved half the battle. The other half comes down to how you actually use it, and that's where most people trip up. Honestly, it reminds me of when I first started learning drawers. Figuring out joinery was one thing, but those tricky undermount slides, they drove me nuts for years. That's a whole nother story, and I'll circle back to that later. But let's stick with the Jigsaw for now. Even with the perfect blade, the wrong technique can still give you crooked cuts, burning, and tons of frustration. Let's go over the most common mistakes people make with technique and how to fix them. A lot of people think pushing harder makes the cut faster. With a Jigsaw though, that's the fastest way to ruin it. When you shove the saw forward, the blade bends and deflects, and your edges come out crooked. It's the same as forcing stock through a table saw. Push too hard, the blade winds, wanders, and the motor bogs down. The simple fix? Let the blade do the work. Steady, forward pressure, but no muscling. If it feels like a fight, it's usually the wrong blade, a dull blade, or the wrong speed. Even with the right pressure, if you move too fast or too slow, the cut still looks bad. Push too fast and the blade tears fibers. Too slow and it overheats and burns. Again, it's just like your table saw. Too fast is ragged, too slow is scorched, and it ties directly to the blade choice. A coarse blade moves faster, and a fine blade needs a slower feed. The trick is to listen. the saw should sound smooth and steady, not chattering or bogging down. The next mistake is staring at the blade. When you lock your eyes on that tiny piece of steel, you start wandering all over the cut. It's like driving a car. Stare at the hood ornament and you'll weave all over the lane. Look down the road and you naturally stay straight. It's the same thing with the jigsaw. Focus ahead of the blade and it'll follow. High-end saws like the Festool Carvex have a strobe light that makes the blade look frozen, which definitely helps. It's a neat feature, but not a game changer. You do not need a crazy $600 saw to cut straight. Just look ahead of the blade instead of staring right at it. And you know what is crazy? Only about 20% of the people who watch these videos are subscribed. That's like having a shop full of tools and only ever grabbing your jigsaw. If you hit subscribe, YouTube will actually send you more videos like this so you can keep picking up woodworking tricks, all for free. All right, so now that straight cuts are under control, let's talk about where most people get tripped up: curves. Once straight cuts feel solid, curves are the next trap. Try forcing a tight curve with the wrong blade and it'll chatter, bind, or possibly snap. It's just like a bandsaw. Wide blades track straight but can't handle curves. Thin blades handle curves great but can't resaw thick stock. The jigsaw works the exact same way. Wide blades for straight cuts, narrow blades for scrolling and tight turns. And don't try to force inside corners. Drill a relief hole or make relief cuts so the blade doesn't jam. So with the right technique, steady pressure, the right pace, keeping your eyes ahead, and respecting your blade's limits, your cuts already start looking cleaner and straighter. But there's still one more piece of the puzzle. Even with the perfect blade and the perfect technique, if you aren't set up right, you'll still fight tear out, crooked cuts, and frustration. That's where setup comes in. A lot of people just hold the wood with one hand and the saw with the other. The board vibrates, shifts, and the cuts come out jagged. It's the same reason you use a sled or fence on the table saw. If your piece moves, the cut won't be accurate. One clamp makes a world of difference, and on sheet goods, a couple sawhorses and clamps give you stability and safety. Even with the board clamped, the offcut is another story. If it hangs out in midair, gravity takes over, and right at the end of the cut, it snaps off, leaving splinters or binding the blade. It's just like not having an outfeed support on your table saw. The cut looks good until the last second when the board drops and ruins all your work. The fix is to support both sides. Clamp the waist, prop it up, or use scraps underneath. My favorite method is laying the whole panel on rigid foam insulation. 2-inch thick foam fully supports the piece, and the blade can bury itself without hitting your bench. Cut anywhere, no drop-offs, and cleaner cuts. That same foam board works great under a track saw too. Safer and easier than wrestling full sheets across a table saw. Without a doubt, the most misunderstood lever on a jigsaw is this guy right here. The orbital setting is basically your speed versus quality dial. Crank it up, the blade swings forward like a little handsaw. Cuts fast, but rough. Turn it down, and the blade moves straight up and down for a cleaner edge, but slower. It's just like table saw blades. A rip blade chews fast but rough. A crosscut blade is slower but clean. Orbital even changes how your blade behaves. With it on, a fine blade cuts aggressively. With it off, a coarse blade cuts a little cleaner. Rule of thumb: orbital on for speed and rough work, orbital off for clean, finished cuts. The second most understood dial, the speed dial. Most people leave their jigsaw on full blast for everything. Too fast and you'll scorch hardwood and melt plastics. Too slow and the blade grabs and chatters. It's just like using a router. Too fast burns, too slow gets rough. The fix: high speed for wood, lower speed for plastics, laminates, and metals. Combine speed with orbital. So high and high, equals aggressive and rough. Low and off equals smooth and controlled. So with the right blade, the right technique, and the right setup, you've eliminated the big mistakes that make most people hate their jigsaw. But if you're the kind of woodworker who's chasing perfection, where good enough isn't good enough, there are a few extra tips and upgrades that really can take your results even further. Even if you fix all the big mistakes, tear out can creep in on plywood and veneers. A strip of painter's tape along the cut line keeps fibers down and gives you a cleaner edge. Draw your cut line right on top of the tape. When you peel it off, the pencil mark disappears too. Clean cut and clean surface. Painter's tape is a hack, but Splinterguards are the precision solution. They hug the blade tight and support fibers right where the teeth exit, just like zero clearance inserts on a table saw or miter saw. Not every jigsaw takes Splinterguards though. They're usually on higher end saws like Festool, Bosch, and Makita. If your saw has a slot in the base, you might be able to use one. If not, tape is your go-to. Even if you've done everything right, blade choice, speed, technique, thin blades still flex in thick wood. The top looks fine, but the edge is angled underneath. It's the same reason bandsaws use wider blades for straight cuts. Thicker jigsaw blades resist flex, track straighter, and leave squarer edges. And precision is what separates rough carpentry from fine woodworking. For me, I learned that the hard way with drawer boxes. Figuring out joinery was one thing, but those tricky undermount slides drove me crazy for years. That's why I built my Mastering Drawer Boxes course. 83 lessons, more than 8 hours of video covering every detail from sizing and joinery to installing hardware. Plus, it comes with a bonus calculator that spits out exact dimensions for every piece, no math required. It's currently on a massive launch sale, but that won't last long. There's a link in the description if you want to check it out. Stiffer blades keep your cuts square. A guide rail keeps them straight. Cutting freehand with a jigsaw almost always drifts. A guide is like a fence on your table saw. It locks the cut in. Clamp a straight edge and let the shoe ride against it, or use your track saw rail. High-end saws like the Festool Carvex can clip right onto the track, which is cool. But honestly, I've had this one for years, and this video is about the second time I've ever even thought about using it that way. A clamp and a scrap board gives you the exact same result. Painter's tape keeps fibers down. Splinterguards take it even further. Stiff blades keep cuts square, and a guide rail keeps them straight. Put it all together, and the jigsaw goes from frustrating to incredibly precise. At the end of the day, the jigsaw isn't the problem. Tear out, crooked cuts, and out of square edges come from the wrong blade, poor technique, and bad setup. Now you know how to fix all three, and if you're chasing perfection, those pro tips will take you even further.